Okay, yeah.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah, I think it posts to this one. Yeah. Yep. Did it.
Awesome. Okay, cool. I think, is the echo still there? Or is it
Now
better?
it's perfect. I think
Now it's
perfect.
good. Yeah, it's probably
Riverside
me.
also has like an echo cancellation. At least I see it. There's like a toggle.
Yeah. I hear some white noise. I hear white noise from somewhere. It's like somebody has an air conditioning on full blast. Is it Chris?
Is that better? Did that do it? No?
No, I think it's still. Oh, yes, yes. It's gone now.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. Oh, actually, you know what, guys?
A lawnmower?
No, they're here.
How long will it take?
Like just a few minutes, hopefully. Are you guys okay? Just waiting. Oh my God, we're on YouTube. How about you entertain the masses? I'm gonna work on my furniture delivery. I will be right back.
Okay.
Oh my God. Should ask Gleb 21 questions.
Just play the song. Play the song.
Yeah, this is where you start the songs.
Yes. And you start answering the questions. Like you can upvote your questions and I'll answer them.
Yeah, that's what Slack is for. You can create a poll.
Yeah.
Have it in there.
How come Zoom or none of kind of meeting software has this like button where like occupy time by like something silly, right? Like just press it and for 5 minutes until you come back it asks you like pop quiz, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Shows a
pretty
joke or
cool.
something. Yeah. Just something while you're in a bathroom
I
or
think-
something.
Yeah, it's like maybe it's like an opportunity to work on your small talk skills.
You mean programming small talk or small talk in general?
I don't know, both either,
Yeah.
whichever. Pick your favorite.
Small talk is a big deal.
I'm really bad at it. I think especially after the last 2 years, I'm like I don't know what to do.
Yeah, especially without your mask, right? You're like, they see my face,
Yeah. Also, I think I've become more bold in that if I have nothing to say or I don't want to talk anymore, I just leave. Which before I would like prolong the conversation a bit and like try, and then now I'm just like I'm busy. I have something to go to, and then I'll leave.
Well, I do have a bunch of birds flying behind me, so
Yeah, that
That's-
background is really cool.
yeah. I'm using this app called right? And it just does excellent background.
It's called
Exactly. It's really called MMHMM. I don't know how they picked the name, it's an awful name, but
yeah.
it does excellent background subtraction, and it has a couple of free backgrounds like this one,
That's
Yep.
cool.
which are pretty good. So right now, for example, if I record a video using OBS, I would run M as a virtual camera. It would remove a background, and then I pipe it into OBS so that it's nice and just my head with no distractions.
Oh, that's cool.
I had two things of
She forgot to mute.
She forgot to mute, so
Of course.
yes, everybody will hear the conversation.
Hi, y'all. I can't hear
Hey.
you, but you want to see?
Well, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Furniture is being
We hear you.
delivered. Oh, hi!
Let me guess. This is
I should, I'll switch
mid-century.
the speaker. Hold on.
Mid-century
Okay, you can hear them. You guys want to say hi to Becky? This is
Hi.
Burka. Well, this is Burka. Circa in the Berkshires. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
just gonna bring the shelves up.
Thank
and
you.
we can leave
Then we're
you
good.
alone.
Okay, perfect. All right, I'll be right back. I'm just gonna pay them.
That's right. Pay after the job. That's right.
Oh God, you
Always.
guys are hilarious. Oh my God.
It's funny how Amal doesn't actually mute herself. She just turns the camera off.
Yeah. True. You get like the full experience.
It's a Amal podcast, right? You don't see her, but you hear everything what's going on. Only furniture in the building.
Gleb, you're in Boston?
That's correct.
area?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Divya, you?
I'm in Chicago now.
Nice. My favorite was second favorite city, I would say, after Boston.
What's your... Oh, Boston's your favorite?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But
I think I've lived in... I went to college in Boston area and like lived there before.
oh, really? Which college?
I went to a college in Worcester, Massachusetts.
Okay.
And so there's really nothing there. It's very... I think since I graduated, there's more. And also now there's Uber and Lyft. When I was in college, they didn't have Uber and Lyft. So like getting around was more challenging if you didn't have a car.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, but yeah, I found I like Boston, but it's really small. I think that's my only thing. Like it's like too little city.
Yeah.
I want more.
It's quite small. I agree. But that's what I like it, right? Like it's human size.
Very walkable, really walkable.
And now we have bike lanes everywhere. It's extremely nice.
Are you in the city proper?
I'm in Cambridge,
Oh, cool. Okay.
so right
That's
across
a
the
nice
river.
area. Yeah.
And if you are not aware, so we have subway, right? Like 5 lines, like red, green, orange, blue. So recently, orange line caught on fire, right?
Yeah,
like as it was
heard.
crossing, right? People were jumping,
It's
jumping.
bad.
Like it was unbelievable show, right?
Yeah.
And now they closed orange line for a month for big repairs, they said, right? And of course nobody believes they're gonna be finished, right? It's a complete mess, right? I mean there are buses and everything, but still like the whole subway is...
Yeah, also especially because the orange line goes towards like Sullivan Square and that area. I guess now there's
Yeah.
the green line too. They extended it.
Oh, that green line is also closed right now, that extension.
Oh, really? Oh, so Somerville in
It's-
that area is like completely inaccessible now.
It's cut off. You can kind of get on commuter rail, right? Like that's
Yeah.
free now there, but it's not the same. So it's...
No. Yeah, because it's not like you have to use the timetable.
Oh,
You can't
it's...
just hop on.
People make fun of a whole diagram of like how you get into the city, right? Like riding a donkey on this section and then like parachute here, and then take a boat if you have one.
Yeah, I think to me the best way to get around the city is still by bicycle because
Yes.
like it's small enough and there's like more bike lanes
Yeah.
now.
Can
So
you-
it's the fastest for you to get around.
Yes, and City of Boston and Cambridge are giving for this month blue bike passes, monthly passes for free,
Oh,
like
nice.
anyone, right?
That's cool. Yeah.
Because of like the whole transportation issue. So that's actually
awesome.
nice.
That's really nice. Hey, so you guys, look at this. You see my beautiful new
So
shelf?
beautiful.
It is
That's
beautiful.
nice.
I know. Can you see the asymmetry? with
Is
the
it supposed to
shelving?
be
Kind
like
of.
sideways? Is it horizontal or vertical? Do you have to like rotate it? Ooh, it's so blurry.
Yeah. You know what, Gleb? I'm not gonna dignify that question with an answer.
I just don't know, right? Like it looks like it's sideways.
It looks pretty short too.
It is a short shelf, guys. Okay. There might be another component that I'm gonna buy. Actually, the lady told me it came in 2 parts, and this was on top of another thing. But she's like, I wanted to sell it as 2 different pieces because she can make
Yeah,
more money. I
but
might
you
buy
already
the other
paid.
piece on top.
Okay.
I already did. Yes. The other one isn't ready. It still needs to be finished. Okay. So
This is a
are we
jazz
ready
party
to?
furniture podcast.
Pretty much. Thank you, all of our live listeners. Thank you for your patience. Okay. The like dozens of live listeners goes to like tens of thousands when the show drops. So, Gleb, before I should have done this off air, but that's fine. Whatever. I wanted to promote your courses. and your stuff. And so if you have a JS Party discount that you wanted to give people, that would be even sweeter, but you don't have to.
How big of a discount do you want to give? I definitely
I mean,
can.
doesn't matter. Five like $10 off or 10% or whatever makes sense. I have no idea.
Okay.
Do you
I'll
want-
make it 20%. Let's
Really?
make it a good
Okay.
deal. Yeah, 20%.
Yeah.
off
Okay,
everything.
so then do we want to come up with a code? Like that'll be
I'll use GS Party and I'll make it valid for like next 2 weeks.
Okay. Yeah, you might want to make it the next 3 weeks because podcasts have a long arc.
Yeah,
But
okay. I'll do that and I'll make it right after the show.
okay, perfect. Excellent. Done. All right. So, and then we'll put that link in the show notes too with the promo code. So, okay, so we can get started. What time is it? 1:20. Sorry, everybody. Thank you. I owe you all lunch. You can do like a Zoom date over with lunch sometime. Okay, we'll get started. 1, 2. Hello, JS Party listeners. We have a very special guest in the house today. I think we might be calling this episode "The Doctor is In" again. So, Doctor, I feel the need to like have an accent. Dr.
Nah.
Gleb Bahmutov, welcome.
Thank you, Amal. Good to be here.
Yes.
Hey, everyone.
You like my like Russian doctor accent?
It's almost next to Dr. Zhivago, kind of the same kind of.
Yeah, this is why drugs are bad, kids. Anyways, I just wanted to also welcome my lovely co-panelists. Divya, welcome.
Hey, it's good to be here.
No, I miss being on a show with you. It's been a hot minute,
Oh,
girl.
same, me
I've
too.
seen her. We got to hang out in California. Same thing with Gleb. Gleb was at my house this past fall. He's overdue for another visit. But Chris is the only person here who I haven't actually got to see in person. So, Chris, welcome.
Hi. Yeah, actually, I did see you in person before I knew you I believe it was like the Node
In Vancouver?
in Berlin.
Oh, in Berlin, JS CompU.
No,
my God,
it
that was such a
Vancouver. It was
crazy-
Vancouver. Yeah, it was Vancouver.
Okay, I did go to
Yeah.
Berlin too, so if you were there, we might have seen each other in a crowd.
Yeah.
Stared at each other from across the room. Careless Whisper starts playing. No, just kidding. Just kidding. Happily married, both happily married people. Anyways, Chris is like, what's
Sorry,
going?
I'm so slow. I didn't even catch that.
I don't even. That's okay. Don't even worry. Again, don't do drugs. Don't do drugs.
You have drugs?
So no comment.
on anything?
No comment. No, I'm just joking. I'm just a stressed out
Judgment-free.
30-year-old trying to
It's a
get.
judgment-free zone here. At least here.
I'm just trying to get through this podcast, y'all. Okay, don't get me distracted. So Gleb, welcome, Gleb. We're so excited to have you. So we're going to be talking to Gleb about a few things today. Gleb is kind of like this super prolific person in the community. He's like an educator. He teaches. He contributes to a ton of open source projects. He really helps lead the way. He's kind of I'd say kind of created a couple of niche expertise areas for himself. Like I think he's an SME, a subject matter expert on testing, all things testing, but I also think he's a pretty good SME when it comes to a lot of different node libraries and utilities. You've created a bunch of stuff that I've used at companies. It's such a treat to like go through my package JSON sometimes and just like look at all the authors and I'm like, oh, I know you. It's like,
That's true.
I'm like, thank you, friends. No, but like you're really kind of this, really incredible person in our community who has been such an expert for so long. And also just, you've really been so generous with your time and knowledge. I mean, all of your slides, everything is available on your website. You have an awesome blog that's been going for years that I refer to your old blog posts and I send them to like engineers that like, more junior engineers that I know, where I'm like, here, this is a great place to learn about this concept or that concept. One thing that came up recently was negative testing. I used one of your blog posts about negative tests to like, negative assertions. So anyway, so you're awesome. I love you, Gleb. You're also a good friend of mine. Just so like on a personal level, lots of love from me. But in your own words, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Oh, of course. And then Cypress, right? One of the lead maintainers and contributors to Cypress. Like you're not doing that full time anymore, but you're going to tell us a little bit about yourself now. So floor is yours, Gleb.
Thank you, Amal, and it's good to be here. And you are way too kind to me.
That's true. Wow.
You know who's Superman? Superman, not me, right? I don't want a job. Honestly, everything that I have achieved, right, is the blog, open source, is because I was just looking around and I was like, no one has this utility, and I should write it for myself. And all we do right now is putting it out there, so we don't have to pay for hosting. We don't have to care about like private repos and subscribe to private, continuous integration service, like private whatever source control, because we have tools like GitHub and JavaScript and NPM ecosystem. And I used to be working on like C++ projects where you have 5 libraries that you use, and if you want like add 6th one, well, guess what? The first 2 now don't compile or don't link properly. Or if you like upgrade a version, well, you probably are out of luck because these versions are incompatible. So as soon as I moved to Node and I started working with JavaScript, I was like, this is so good. I can just grab something off the shelf, use it, and add something else, and they still work. And then add 10 more dependencies, and they still work, right? And people complain about JavaScript and how fast it's evolving, and it's like, well, you might as well try other, language environments. And then you'll complain that nothing is getting done. Like there are no changes, right? There is like a change every couple of years. But there is no like user-driven, systems, tooling, all this jazz that we love, honestly. So that's all I've been doing. And I've been doing for a while, just open sourcing my work, reusing it at my day job, and, kind of supporting users that use it for their day jobs. That's it. And I will add one more thing. I'm not generous with my time. Honestly, I'm not. And I'll tell you how to not be generous. So let's say I have a repo and you're using it and you have a question. Now you'll find my email and you email me directly, right? And I get these emails like every day. Oh, like I'm using this, I have a question. How do you do this? I will actually reply with a blurb of text that I have a template in my, inbox. But says, sorry, I cannot answer private support questions. It doesn't scale because 10 other users will have the same question. Open the repo issue, ask it in the public, Discord, whatever channel, and I'll answer there, right? And I probably know the answer already. I'll just find it in a link, right? But you need to do it publicly. So then 10 other users will find it, will benefit. Like, I cannot be generous with my private time. Like, it just doesn't work, right? So the system is to do everything in public. And a lot of people like now swear by it, right? They do work in public, where even if your day job, you do something or you prep it, you trying to like kind of survey the field, you do it in public, and then you do your day job, in private. And I'm really amazed by people that do that, because it's so, I want to say, beneficial with your time, right? You get so many benefits from this. I want to be like that, right?
Yeah.
Stingy with your private time, generous with your public work.
Yeah, that's a really cool paradigm for sure, and I think it requires a certain amount of vulnerability as well.
Yeah.
I think which is hugely important, but yeah, I mean, so I think kind of the goal today is there's so much to unpack with you. I want to hear about your backstory. I want to hear about your story with Cypress, especially now kind of being in a position where you can look back. I want to hear about you and I and how we have a story together about Cyprus, which is kind of actually key, which is why I feel like, I'm like maybe a secret hero of the internet because I helped make this connection or something and we improved our testing infrastructure as a result. Anyways, it's fine. I'm trying to take too much credit. But we also I want to get into Cyprus. So we'll be getting into kind of a lot here in our 3 segments. So let's maybe start with some of the Gleb questions, right? So can you tell us about how you got involved with Cyprus? Because I think a lot of you were pretty prolific before Cyprus, but I think being a part of Cyprus and then also being part of scaling it and open sourcing it and all, like that was like, I feel like that was, you kind of rode a different level of like hockey stick fame in the open source community. So tell us a little bit about that.
I'll preface it with the thing that I did not write Cypress, right? Cypress was a child of Brian Mann, who is still leading Cypress, the company, who's absolutely like hardcore developer, genius with respect to testing tools, knows everything in and out. I just came to Cypress very early. And I came there because I used Cypress for a year while it was still like private beta. And I had a need for it because we needed to test a web application back at like some startup where I worked. And we looked around and we used all sorts of tools like Phantom.js, Karma, you name it, right? And nothing was reliable.
The dark old days. Oh, don't remind me.
The tools were kind of had tough time with modern web applications where you click a button and then the application would load data and then show the data. And you always had to like, I wait 5 seconds, the data will be there. Like the dynamic applications presented problems for tooling that kind of operated outside of browser, like Selenium WebDriver, where it just sends commands to the browser, like find a button, then sends commands, click on a button. In between, the application can completely like re-render the button, maybe disable it while it's fetching new data. So by the time the click arrives, boom, you're out of luck, and it's hard to understand why it has failed, right? So Cypress operates in a browser, which presents its own technical challenges, but I think they're smaller than trying to operate this machine from outside. So I got onto private beta access, tried it for a while, just loved it, right? We started using it, I started promoting it, like, it's a good topic for a conference talk because everyone hates testing and everyone will be like, oh, wait, you're going to do a demo that shows how to solve it in a nice way? Yeah, definitely come in. And I did meta presentations. We've done with Amal a workshop in Boston, right? Unit testing and end-to-end testing. And so a year later, Cypress, the company, raised some money, invited me. It was a gamble, right? Because, it's always a gamble to join a company working on dev tooling, right? Because it's not a field where people like throw money at you, right? It was still before like Vercel, Gatsby days, right?
Yes. Yeah, it was definitely in the era before like all these dev tools started to get VC money. It's just interesting to see like as soon as companies start to realize how expensive it is to staff and maintain and retain engineers, like all of a sudden dev productivity is like really important to businesses, like, which is great, right? Like it's a win-win for us, but it's so funny that it's taken them this long to catch up, right? So yeah.
And testing always has the smallest budget, right? If you think about the marketing department versus testing, marketing department is huge, testing department is small. And I always joke that it's because marketing department sells you dreams and testing department crashes them. Right, like internally, it like just kills them. So when people realize how much money they waste by a bug, right, affecting their production, affecting their reputation, all of a sudden like, oh wait, we have to invest in better tooling, we have to invest in training, becomes like very logical decision. It's no longer like move fast and break things. It's more like what are the best tools that you can use so that you move fast while not breaking things in obvious ways.
Right.
So, joined the company, and then immediately we had to figure out how to like survive, and we decided to open source Cypress itself, right? Because no one would write tests using a tool that can just disappear, right? Startup fails and the tool is gone, and then all your tests are gone, poof. Or startup decides to charge you 10 times more money for the license, and you're like, why, right? So we open source Cypress, we figure out we're gonna make money off additional services like recording the test artifacts like videos, screenshots, test results, maybe running tests in parallel. Like that was my first big project at Cypress, making parallelization happen. And so Cypress is doing that. We're doing it pretty well, I want to say. Obviously I don't know the numbers for the last year, but I left Cypress. But, they seem to be doing very well. I joined a much larger corporation now, and I'm using Cypress from the other side, right? Used to work on the Cypress itself, on the dashboard integrations. Now I'm like the head of automation department. We write hundreds of tests, we maintain them, and I see Cypress and the dashboard as a user, 100%, right? And so I'm very happy with Cypress, very happy with my automation team, right? And now we can talk about everyone's career, right? Because I know everyone who's listening is probably thinking, okay, it's all good. How do I find a better job, right? What is open source? How can it help my career? Should we talk about this, Amal?
We can definitely talk about this, but I also want to make sure we talk about the open sourcing journey for the project, because you did open source it, and that was, I think, a huge it was kind of a monumental thing for the project, because by open sourcing it, all of a sudden it wasn't this like private tool that some random startup was saying like, trust us. It was like, okay, well, here, take the core. You have the core, it's open source. Here's a bunch of other services that you can buy if you want to support this company, if you want to have a better integration, suite. But like, I thought that was really, really cool.
Again, a huge part is Brian Munn just convincing the company, right? Once you raise some money, you are no longer owning the thing, right? Like no matter what people say. Investors, they own a huge chunk, and they actually determine where it's going. Honestly, like you cannot just say, we're going to open source thing, right?
It's run by the board.
Right, it's run by the board. And Brian convinced people that open sourcing is the right decision, right? Because otherwise there's this risk and nobody's going to use you as a tool. From a technical perspective, open sourcing means a bunch of things, right? Everything from like making sure that whatever you open source only has all the licenses, squared up, right? Like you're not using third-party dependencies with private licenses. Everything, you have to have a licensing contribution agreement for everyone who contributes, right? You have to clean up the repo, make sure that anyone who wants to like submit a pull request can actually do that, right? To me, open sourcing is almost like, imagine you have a car and you want to bring it to a car show where you want to pop a hood so that other people can look into it, right? Well, you probably need to make sure that under the hood things are in order, right? And look good, and people you can be proud of it. So we've done for a couple months doing like just cleaning up things, organizing them, putting them all in one place, so it's not like 10 different repos.
Okay.
Right?
I have a burning question for you on open source, and then I want to hear from Divya and Chris, because like I've been like super chatty Nelly here, but like. I always wondered, like, when you open source a repo, like, what do you do with your Git tree? Specifically, like, if you're removing stuff when you're cleaning it up to be open source, the ref log is going to not be your friend here, because people could, in theory, go back, right? So what do? Do you start a new Git tree? Like, and then if so, like, what about all that fidelity, that you're losing, right? So I'm just curious.
I'll let Divya and Chris kind of take a stab at it.
Yeah, do you have answers?
I don't know if so what I've seen happen is people just zap it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe if they need that, the old info, they keep it in an archive somewhere. It would be interesting to know what Cypress did there, because I have no idea. Did they like? I could imagine I would be the kind of person who'd want to go and massage the history and like spend a week just like fixing up change sets and reordering things like a crazy person, which is a thing I like to do.
Oh my God, that's like signing up for the worst kind of pain. I mean, I love my ref log, but I do not like being in there.
I do a lot of wacky stuff with my
Mm-hmm.
my geek history. But
I believe that. We should do a show on it.
yeah. So yeah, but what did Cyprus do there?
Yeah.
I believe they kept the whole history of a main repo, right? And
Whoa.
I'm
Okay.
trying
Wow.
to kind of check that really quickly. I do believe you can see all the way to
Initial
the
commit.
first to initial commit.
Damn.
I know, I know. You can find, and the first commit was something funny. I've done it before, I swear, right? It was
Yeah.
something like Brian, like, okay, first commit is gonna be great, kind of like
Yeah.
starting with testing tool.
And it
But
was like several different languages, right? Like it was like coffee script, script, this script, that script, Nancy script, like all the scripts. Like how many languages was in the
it was just CoffeeScript because it started, let's
Okay.
say, probably like 7 years ago when
Okay.
ES6 was not a thing, and the only
Right.
language you could use with modules and like sane semantics was CoffeeScript. And I have to say, CoffeeScript was my bridge
Oh, coffee
because
script was ahead of the
I used
day.
to be C++ and C# developer, and I could never program in JavaScript. To me, it was like a bowl of spaghetti code all the time, right? And then I discovered CoffeeScript, and it made sense. And when I saw Cypress, I was like, oh, it's written in CoffeeScript. So I was like, gotcha. And not only the tool was written itself in CoffeeScript, you could write the tests. You could probably still write it. I don't know. In CoffeeScript, like your spec files could be CoffeeScript, and it's like super clean syntax. It actually looks very nice. So CoffeeScript was the way to go, and slowly moved to ES6 and then to TypeScript. So now I believe the tool is like pretty much all TypeScript. I don't know how you feel about TypeScript, but it's there.
I've come around to it.
Same, me too. But I think the best way to see it is not comparing it to JavaScript. Just
I
seeing it as a
agree.
completely different language.
All I want to say is TS ignore is my favorite comment. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna fight you. I'm just TS ignore next line,
Do
whatever.
you have a little hotkey in your keyboard? Just go pow, cut paste, Just shut up, TypeScript compiler. Take that. That's the thing. I'm very
Yeah.
angry at that TSC compiler. I mean, at TSC, I'm just angry at it a lot. And I always just time box myself. So I'm a fan of like pragmatic TypeScript, which is definitely a philosophy. We'll put a link in the show notes to a blog post from Mark Erickson on this, which I love. So pragmatic TypeScript is basically just time box yourself on TypeScript and know that you are trying to make a completely dynamic language static. And sometimes the two things just don't happen, okay? It doesn't. And sometimes you spend way too much time making complex generics when you just need to just do an ignore or an any. And a key example of that is like expressive things like Lodash, right? Trying to type that, it's like forget about it,
Yeah.
So anywho, so I think we wanted to get into one more thing before we break, which is how open source is good for your career, right? That's something you wanted to discuss. So
I want to discuss it, and when I want to rant about conferences these days, but
we can do that.
Okay, so if you start open sourcing things, then first of all, you have a record of your work that anyone can look up. And so next time you get to a company and you go to the interviewing at the company, you can point and say, okay, this is what I've written, right? We can discuss that. This is why I've done it. But it's no longer, oh, I've done this thing, but I cannot show anything because it was private to my company, right? So now all of a sudden, like, the discussions are concrete, and they can pretty much replace, the whiteboard coding interviews. Because, like, why would you, like, I would never give someone a whiteboard coding interview right now if they bring me, here are my open source projects, this is what I contributed, this is my commit, and we can discuss it. Like, why? Like, it makes a lot more sense. So this is a great part. It removes like this whole problem with interviewing, this whole nervousness, this whole like on the spot thing. Okay, so that's great. But another thing that will supercharge you after a couple of years, probably if you keep it up, right, is that you're going to be invited to the companies, right, to join the companies just based on your open source work, right? Like people will email you or LinkedIn or whatever, just talk to you and say, okay, hey, why don't you come on board? You know this tool, you've done this like awesome job right here, right? Why don't you join us? right? It's this huge change, and you just have to keep it up with open source work, right? Will it happen like on a clock? Probably not, but it probably will happen. But there is another, I would say, complementary work to just programming. Programming is great, coding is great, but you have to write. You have to write blog posts, you have to write presentations, you have to promote your work, you have to explain it. And you'll benefit yourself from doing it, right? And other people will understand what you're doing. The number of people who's going to look at your source code is probably like single digits. Maybe someone reviews a pull request, maybe someone digs into how the library works, right? Very small. But if you write a blog post saying this is how you do, let's say in my case, like unit testing or testing a node program or testing CLI program or testing a website, the number of people who will read it could be thousands, right?
Break. That was like a great way to end it. Can't even follow up. So awesome. Perfect. Right on time. Yay us. Does everybody have a local recording going?
Yeah.
Gleb, do you?
Yes, I'm recording audio.
Okay, good. Just making sure. Devia and Chris, because we have
Yeah.
been having some issues with Riverside. Okay, great. Does anybody need a stretch break or a water break?
Yeah, I gotta get some more coffee.
I'm gonna go get some water. I'll be right back.
People not prepared.
I know. I'm always prepared.
Hey Jen, could you bring this? Could you bring that bench? Okay, everyone. There's a really nice, I also bought this really nice bench. It's like, I was like asking my husband, I was like, oh, can you lift it up and bring it into my room so I can show people on video? And he's like, no, I'm not feeling well. He's sick. Doesn't
It's
have
called-
COVID, thank God. But yeah, he's sick. Pardon?
It's called bench press, right?
Ah, good one. Gleb, you'll see it when you come over. Okay, so I think what I want to kick off this next segment is I want to go into the philosophy of testing and how Cypress moved the needle, and then I want that to kind of like segue us into Cypress. And
Hey, Amal,
Yeah.
in the chat there, I don't know if we can do that little bit of conversation. I don't know.
oh, I didn't even see this. I'm sorry. Oh yeah, absolutely. So do you want to kick us off and Chris into the next segment and into that topic, and then we'll go into testing philosophies. I can segue us into testing philosophies after.
Okay. Yep.
Okay, cool. All right, awesome. Okay, so I can kick us. So Chris, you're gonna kick us off. Just try to like tie it. Try to like say something about that open source career thing from earlier. If you can tie, just like, take a little hopscotch. Just mention it and then go into your thing. Is that confusing?
So,
You can do it.
okay.
Okay. All right, whenever you're ready.
Yeah. So moving from open source careers and kind of back to this open
Yes.
source thing.
Yes, you got it.
Cypress question. Cypress is, I think last time I checked, permissively licensed, and I was curious, like how Cypress arrived at that, because a lot of companies in similar like VC funded situations will choose essentially anything but a permissive license, because they don't want some competitor to go and take the source code and run with it. So yeah, how did you get to, I believe it's even MIT, how did you get
Yep.
to MIT, and how has that worked out?
Excellent question. So yes, Chris, Cypress, the test runner itself is licensed under MIT license. Just like all the plugins that Cypress does, all the integrations with particular tooling that it has, all the reporters and CI integrations and all that. It's all MIT license. One reason is because I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, right down the street from MIT University. So that's obvious. That's one answer. No, but the serious thing, a lot of companies.
Oh my God, Gleb, are we gonna start a counter for your dad jokes? This is hilarious. Dude, you guys, listen, internet and people who don't know Gleb very well, you don't understand how much of a dad joke pun master Gleb is. He's like, he could just whip them out like bang, 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 you know? So we're gonna have to count them.
No.
Start a
No.
Anyways, okay.
MIT University has nothing to do with it, right? Cypress, the company, was founded in Atlanta, Georgia, right next to Georgia Tech University. So MIT would not play a role. But yes, MIT license for two reasons. One is it's the most permissive license where the companies that are going to use it are not going to be afraid of using it, right? They're not going to say, oh, can we use it just for our open source or public website or internal tooling? No, right? So the wide adoption was the goal, and the MIT license allowed the widest adoption, we felt. And another thing, speaking about competitors, Cypress the test runner is now used by Cypress the dashboard competitors. If you go to browser stack, you can run Cypress and the results will be written on the dashboard. If you use AWS Amplify, you use test runner and they show you the results on their dashboard. Perfecto, same thing, right? And Cypress the company is okay with competitors just like showing the results of the test runs and kind of competing. The goal was to get as many developers as possible using the tool.
That's smart.
Okay, so even if some developers are gonna look at results in other dashboards, is fine, right? And it also is very difficult from stopping people from just using any kind of Mocha compatible reporters in general, right? So Cypress is built on top of Mocha, so all the reporters are working. So if you want to generate, Mocha awesome report and just show it on your CI, fine. So it's not even the commercial competitors. You're competing against people just hosting their own report results. So the wide adoption is better.
Gleb, you just said Chris's trigger word, mocha.
Mocha, I know.
I can't, Chris, what's it like being in a Starbucks? Like, is it what's that like? I'll have a mocha frappuccino. Okay, fine. No. So yeah, Chris, for those of you who may not be familiar, is one of the lead and core contributors of Mocha, like the world famous backbone, like highly used, never thanked enough test runner that's node first and is awesome and has been around forever and is battle tested and has a really simple, easy API that's open and extensible. I'll stop the advertising now, but that's what Mocha is.
I haven't worked on it for a year.
You haven't? Okay, fine.
Yeah.
This is news to me, Chris.
Yeah.
But you did. You did for a very long time.
But I did for like a good 5 years.
Yeah. Right. So, anywho, yeah, that's a really cool answer. And very strategic of Cypress.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
By the way, can I add just my personal opinion about like Mocha, Cypress, other testing tools like Playwright, Selenium, you name it. Okay, so imagine all the people writing web applications, right? They all need to test. The number of people actually testing their websites or web application like completely is very small. Right? Majority of people test maybe some part, it's too hard, they give up, they probably stick to just unit tests, right? So I myself envision this giant pie, and only a thin slice of a pie is eaten, right, by the end-to-end test tools, right? So if Cypress captures 10% of the pie, perfect, I'm happy. If Playwright captures 20% of a pie, no big deal. There's plenty of pie to go around.
To go around, I would agree.
Exactly. Use any tool that you like. Just make sure your website is working so I can freaking use it. That's it. So it was the wide adoption, and even if some market share of test runs results will be captured by competitor to Cypress the company, that's fine. No big deal.
Yeah, right. And that's because Cypress, for those who might be wondering, Cypress, Cypress is an open source project. The core is open source. There's lots of modules and plugins that are also open source. Some maintained by Cypress, some maintained by the community. And the company itself makes its money off of its dashboard subscriptions.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about here. And basically, because they've open sourced everything, it's also enabled other competitors like AWS Amplify, for example, to show those results, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And to kind of compete with their dashboard product. But I think they've taken a really strategic bet around scale here. And so I think that's really, really, really smart. I think when developers are the ones who are advocating, like, you've done something right. And I think for me, that was what I found most interesting about Cypress, was just the sheer kind of, it really solved the big need that we had in our community. And we had a lot of pain doing some similar things. But then also it just mass adoption across the board. Startups, Fortune 500s, Fortune 50, Fortune 10 companies. I mean, it's kind of wild. And I think for me, what's really interesting about all this is I think it's shifted the needle on like where we are right now for like our testing philosophy has shifted, I would say, from where we were like 5 years ago, from where we were 10 years ago. And I think for me, Cypress has been a key part of that shift, right? And we have a lot of front-end engineers who listen to us, right? And I'm teaching this to the engineers that I lead at work as well, that, really when people think about integration tests, for me, I think of that as like anything within your own repo boundaries, right? So if you have a front-end repo, or if you have a source directory with all your front-end code, like everything in that is your boundary, everything. So making sure all of that is harmoniously working together, that is an integration test. And true end-to-end test is like actually going outside the bounds of your repo, launching something for real, not mocking or stubbing anything, right? And those are really expensive tests to maintain. Like so end-to-end tests, I feel like they get this bad rep because I think more people don't focus enough on integration tests. And like really you want to have a whole load you want to have a whole load of integration tests, and you want to have a handful of end-to-end tests that act as smokes, right? It's a smoke test. It's just to make sure everything is working, right? Because in theory, if everybody's taking care of their little house, right? If they're taking care of their boundaries, then, the kind of testing that the connection points are still working is all you really need to do with a true end-to-end test, right? And so can you talk to us a little bit about that shift in testing methodologies and philosophies and how things are changing, right? Like the ratio of unit and integration and end-to-end, and also like our understanding of integration tests is sort of changing. And Cypress, I think, has really enabled that story, at least for the teams that I've been on,
So, Amal, excellent kind of runway. Okay, so if you write a small piece of code, you probably will test it, and those tests are called unit tests. They're kind of like little drills, right? Then maybe you have a couple of components and like your front end, and you write integration test where you don't have a back end. Maybe you test how a couple of components work together. But when you put your front end and back end and databases and whatever else you might have in the system, and then you test it like a user, right? Go to the URL, click on a button, log in, create a project and so on. Those are end-to-end tests, and they go through the whole system. Now, you might still stub some calls, for example, to the payment system or to like email system, but it's fine. Majority of calls should go through and exercise your whole thing. And it's incredible how much broken stuff you find, even if all parts work individually very well and are fully tested. So right now I work at Mercari US, which is this online marketplace. You can sell your existing stuff, you can buy furniture, including shelves. The furniture will be delivered to you, Amal, right? Like it's nice.
Are you trying to like get back at me because I almost got a job? I had a job offer from Mercari and I had to sadly turn it down.
No,
it was really upsetting.
I'm just making fun of people like delivering furniture to you just now.
Okay.
So.
All right. Oh, okay. Got it. I was like, wait a second. What's going on?
But imagine you buying furniture from someone else, right? Some other person or a store, right? And you have to, pick it, make payment, right? from multiple providers. You can find delivery service, right? Another company will go and deliver and so on, right? So imagine how many systems actually work together to make it happen. And when you have thousands of users like every minute. So imagine how you test that. So, we have, let's say, probably like 600 end-to-end tests, right?
True
In our dev
end-to-end.
environment. True end-to-end, right? Login, create a user, login, create an item, buy an item, arrange delivery, track it, right? So on. So imagine, in theory, everything is working, right? But you constantly find, okay, our furniture pickup service that's responsible for organizing third party is returning an error. Why is that? Okay, now go investigate, right? Okay, it's back. Why is back? Whatever tooling for you to track it down. Our suggestion service that kind of gives you shipping suggestions. If you're selling an item and you have to ship it, right? You can use your postal service, you can use FedEx, or you can use whatever, DHL. There is a service responsible for suggesting which option to use, right? And how much it would cost and the weight. All of a sudden it's not responding, right? End-to-end tests allow you to find all these issues that should not be there, right? Because you did test those services in isolation, but together in this whole deployed environment, something's gone wrong. So I think the biggest thing about Cypress was someone who is working on a front end or back end or working as a tester could come in and write a test very, very quickly and see it run and understand why it failed or why it succeeded or what has happened during that test. I think that was the revolution. You could come into a new job and in the first day, boom, show how full system is working or not working. It's fine either way, right? But I think that was revolution. You did not have to suffer through tooling and versions and installation and running it on CI. You could be successful in one day. So I was impressed myself, and I hope the users who tried it are also impressed. And that's what it's really nice to see still. Like, I'm still a big advocate for Cypress every day.
Do you think that Cypress, this is kind of my take on this situation is like Cypress was really the first end-to-end testing tool that focused on the developer experience and not just this is a tool for the QA team because and what it did was it kind of caused this shift left where developers are now saying, oh, writing these functional or these end-to-end tests is part of my job now, right? And that wasn't how things were before. You'd have a QA team and they'd work with their tools and you wouldn't touch them. But
because nobody in developer land wanted to touch anything called with Selenium in the word, and it was just super hard. And it's like everything was written in Java too. It's like, what's all this Java? It's like what is going on? I couldn't agree with you more, Chris. And now that shift left is something that's still happening at quite a few companies as well. I think that's still something that we're in the middle of as an industry. It's not universal.
Yeah. And it still is in progress. So, and I'll tell you an example. So it used to be that Cypress would only do end-to-end testing, right? You visit the URL, you find a button, you click on it, and then the website would contact, backend and then show results. Excellent. So now Cypress released something called component testing, right? So imagine you are a developer and you work on a date picker that fetches like available, date intervals, right? When you can schedule something like a pickup. Okay, well, how would you test that, right? It used to be that you would use something that runs in Node like Mocha, Jest, Ava, and so on, right? But would emulate the browser that would render your component in this dumb emulation, and then you would have to know specific framework things for
the secret handshakes, I call them.
The secret handshake for that framework, right? And the testing tool and integrate and say, fire a click event and then turn the wheel so that the framework, does its processing and then renders the results in this thing that you don't see because it runs in complete dumb emulation. And so Cypress,
Don't forget to
yeah.
hold your breath either. You have to hold your
Ex-
breath and then touch your nose and like wiggle
Yeah.
your toe 3 times.
You sacrifice a goat, the whole
The
shebang.
whole
But
shebang, right? Exactly.
so Cypress folks, right, kind of were thinking, okay, well, why don't we take that component, React, Angular, Vue, whatever, and we'll have a browser that we control, and we'll just mount that React component and then start React as a mini web application. So instead of mounting your whole app, when you visit the URL, you mount that component and you also hook into that so you can like pass, I don't know, like a property or a spy. But other than that, after you mount it, it runs as a full application. So you can use the same commands for clicking, for typing, for observing the network, for stubbing the network, for checking the result, all using the same standard commands, right? Use all the dev tools, use all the debugging tools that you want right there. And you're using a real browser, so you can see everything. So this version of Cypress has support for React, Angular, and Vue. I'm super happy to see it because it shifts the testing all the way to the left so that the developers, while working, can see the thing, right? And this also allows you to do things like, okay, well, if I'm testing a button, I have to find the button. So how do I find it? So now developers have to think about it because they're writing this component test. If I click on a button and it shows like a pop-up with some text, how do I check that pop-up? Well, you need probably some kind of label or ARIA attribute or even a data test attribute so you can find it. So developers now start adding and think about testability of a code and components. And once that's done, they can write end-to-end tests so much simpler because everything is testable, everything is findable, right? And then QAs who come in, they can say, yeah, I see this component, I see the ARIA label, I'll select it using ARIA label, I'll observe a network call. It makes end-to-end test writing so much simpler because you shifted left so much, but now everything makes sense. Nothing is like black box and nothing is like, well, I don't know how it works.
It's not over.
It's pretty impressive.
All right. Enough of the shenanigans for real. That's amazing. And whoa, right? Like talk about like pushing the needle and shifting the conversation, right? Making it easy to actually visualize your tests, have it be part of your iterative development workflow. And I think, then taking that and saying, you know what? Hey, node environments, maybe not the best place to do front-end testing, for components, right? Let's render them in a browser. It's one of the things that's always bugged me. I'm like, what was it? Not Phantom JS. What's it called?
No, Phantom JS was the first one.
First, Phantom JS, and then there was the other one. What was Dominic's? VDOM, something, no. What's the one that Dominic works on? Dominic DeNicola.
JS DOM?
JS DOM, thank you. Yes. JS DOM, right? I'm like, come on, people. Like, we are reinventing the wheel, Let's just use node tools for node testing and let's use, browser tools for browser testing. You're like, how do you know your images are rendering? How do you know your CSS is working? It all this kind of speaks to that, like, JavaScript hungry hippo kind of phase that we're going through as a community, right? Like everything that can be done with JavaScript will be done with JavaScript, regardless of whether it's a good idea or not. Like, So, anywho, I'm ranting now.
I feel like those headless browsers, like your Phantom, they really filled like this niche because it was need because
there was a need. There was a need, but we've evolved past it now. Though we have better tools.
Right. Well, it was slow. It's still slow. It's slow to start a browser.
Oh, it is. Oh, there's that. Yeah, I get that.
And if you want that quick feedback loop, then you have this thing that runs in Node that fakes a browser and is really weird, but people love it, right? So.
Yeah.
I honestly, that is the biggest pushback that I have gotten from trying to always make that pitch to teams. Is like, well, it's so slow to like launch a browser and like wow 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 wow. Like literally, that's like that's the excuse that I get, and I get it, people, I get it. But you know what? We have computers, we have compute, we have fast, really MacBooks, like, and there's like cloud computing, and there's called like caching, and using ASTs to like run the right set of tests and such and such. I mean, like we should leverage these things, Yeah, it's not, I get it. Like, it's not one terminal window, but it is the right thing to do for our users at the end of the day. And the right thing to do for the health of our code and our applications. So, I'm just putting it out there,
You're right. And you have to talk about what's the speed that you're trying to optimize. The initial speed of starting the test tool and getting to the first result, or the speed of your development cycle, because these are different things, right? And I have a whole presentation about we're optimizing for this like initial like run of a test, right? Oh, it's 10 milliseconds versus 10 seconds. I was like, okay, but what if something fails? How fast can you debug it? Oh, it's a black box, and you have to like and then there's a browser API, but you're not sure if it's implemented at all or correctly, versus you seeing it in browser. What's the speed of debugging something that fails on CI? What's the speed of maintaining the test when someone else who hasn't written the test comes in and has to change it or investigate a failing test when you already left the company? What's the speed of that? Right? Let's not optimize for something that you can just leave open on your computer and it just like sits there rerunning the test as you like work on it, right? So to me, it's like, think about the speed you're optimizing for, because it might surprise you. And all the comparisons, right? And okay, if we're ranting, let me rant about this.
Rant.
The most popular things on the internet are things of framework X versus framework Y, right? Where we say like, here's a list with 1,000 items, and let's like virtually scroll through it, and look, this framework X is like 10 seconds, this one is 30 seconds. And it's like, okay, is that the speed we're really optimizing? That's the use case, that every user will scroll very quickly? Okay, how come you're not using the speed of development, the productivity of development, or something else? And guess what? Because it's so hard to measure, right? But yet everyone like going through this flame wars. Is it 2 kilobytes versus 10 kilobytes of initial JavaScript? Okay, I understand it might be matter in some context, right? But let's not just say this is the only metric.
Yeah, no, I get that. There's so much to unpack here. To kind of summarize, Cypress has really pushed the needle for our ability to have good DX and maintain our tests, and also be able to test more things with it, not just integration and end-to-end tests, but actually component tests, right? Yeah. And that's really exciting. We're going to get into like all of that and more in the next segment. I'd love to take it down a few layers and also hear more from Divya. Hello, Divya. Do you want to say something for our listeners?
No, I think I echo a lot of the sentiments that have already been mentioned.
Okay,
So, yeah.
Awesome. All right, third segment will be run by Divya, everyone. You heard it here first, and we'll catch you in a few. Okay, done. So, all right. Stretch break, water break, anything break. All right, so what do we want to take this? How do we want to bring this thing home?
What was the last thing that you said you wanted to cover? I forgot.
I want to complain about the conferences.
Ah, yes, that one. Okay.
What about conferences?
Well, so a lot of conferences, they switch to online format, right? And now we're doing this hybrid.
Oh, interesting.
Right? And for a while, you're like, okay, the perk of being a speaker, right, and preparing and actually practicing was, okay, I'm going to this nice, beautiful place, spend time with people like I find interesting, have a speaker's dinner, not go to work. Now, right, with virtual conference, like I'm going to work, and in a break, I also have to
give a talk.
Deliver, right?
To no audience, maybe record it in advance and share it out. Yeah.
Right, and as like, I'm fine doing it for conferences that are free, right? And like, or like very low cost, right? But sometimes conferences, okay, so now you know what conferences do? they asked me to do a workshop for free, right?
Is
And
this
I've done it.
NGConf?
The
Because I know
NGConf
you're
is
going.
NGConf is
paid.
paying me, so
Yeah,
that's fine,
good.
right? So I'm fine with that. But online conference wants me to do a workshop for free, and I was like, okay, maybe, right? Okay, fine. And I was like, what's my like kind of like benefit? And they're like, well, we'll announce it to everyone taking a workshop. I was like, can you at least include in your wide email
Yeah.
distribution, right? My links. Oh, we'll think about it. So I get no publicity, right? Work for free. And the workshop is a lot more work than just a conference talk, right?
Yep.
And now the conference is even refusing to kind of pay anything meaningful. So
Yeah.
too much online, not enough in person.
It's hard. Yeah, it's totally hard. I was doing a lot of conferences in like 2019, and then the moment 2020 happened, I
Sorry,
stopped.
working, like, the people who spray the outside of the property are here, so I just had to tell him I'm like in a podcast, and my husband told me to take care of this because he's doing something else. So, anywho, all right. So I know, I'm busy. So where,
I mean, we
so
can
what are we doing? So Divya, can you please, yeah,
we can
you
talk
bring us
about.
in.
It seems like okay. I'm just gonna
We need,
say
yeah,
first
I,
before.
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, it's more like community stuff, I guess, because we talked about like open source community and online community,
Yeah.
but like developer community as a whole, which encompasses
Yeah.
conferences
Yeah.
too.
Do we want to talk about Cyprus a little bit? Because I was thinking it'd be nice to get into like what are the features that are like the coolest that people love about Cyprus, and what's new to the project in the past year. I don't know if that's something you have or like want to talk about, Gleb, or have content on.
I I can spend 2 minutes on this because we talk about component testing, but there's another thing for recording tests which is really really cool that I can describe. People
Okay.
will love it.
Okay, so Divya, maybe you can bring us in on like what's new and innovation, kind of continuing that conversation. And then once he's done with that, if you want to segue and take us to the community stuff, like let's take it. Because I want to talk about Gleb's courses and I want to
Yeah.
plug it
Yeah.
there as well. So at some point I will jump in to plug that.
Cool. Okay.
And then Gleb will probably record an intro with this show that gives us a link that tells everyone the link to
Okay.
your thing and what the code is. But we'll mention it here as well. What's the website?
Cypress.tips.
Okay, Cypress dot tips, like
Yeah.
actual dot. Okay, good. Just making sure.
Yeah.
We put it in the chat. Okay.
It's a
great.
new
Oh,
top-level domain.
Cypress. Oh, it's a dot tips. Okay, so it's not dot tips.com. Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. Cool.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about Cypress and like the various testing frameworks, the history of that and how it came to be, but what is upcoming or what are the innovations that are sort of on the horizon for Cypress?
So I already mentioned component testing. That baby is out there. It's growing. It's becoming a nice, person on its own. But there is something else that is I would say one is huge. So usually you have to be a developer to write a test. And a lot of people ask, well, can I just interact with the website and record the test this way, right? No code kind of or low code tooling. And Cypress has added what's called a Cypress Studio, where you can just
Ooh.
interact with the site and it spits out the code right into your spec file. You can inspect it, modify, and so on. And they removed it in version 10. And it caused chaos. People were crying, people were cursing, people were like throwing furniture out of the window. Like, why did you remove this no-code kind of recording tool? And the Cypress the company developers, they said it's kind of hard to fit it in with like the big architectural changes we've made. So maybe we'll bring it back. We have to justify it. I personally was always against that tool because it's hard to just record a good test by interacting. It's because you only can record actions on the page rather than like actions and assertions, which is a big part of a test. Anyway, that thing aside, Chrome, the browser team, has created a recorder. If you open in Chrome the DevTools, there is a new panel. It's experimental, but it's there by default, called Recorder, where you can click a button and record interaction with your site and then export it as a JSON or as a Puppeteer, which is another test runner tool from Google. Okay, Cypress has released.
I got a story that I'm going to tell. You're gonna love it, baby, think it's swell. I only learned it today. The TIL.
I'm having a lot of fun with sound bites. I've never pressed this button today. I was hoping this would be a very quick TIL, but it was like a dramatic one.
It is dramatic.
But here for it nonetheless. Resume, please.
Fine. No, so Cypress team has just released Cypress Chrome Recorder extension. You install it in your Chrome browser. Then you go back to the recorder panel, you record the test, like by interacting with the site, clicking, typing and so on. And then at the end, you can export it as a Cypress test. And it has all the Cypress commands. And then you just edit it, right? You add maybe assertions of what you expect for each step or at the end to have on the page, and it's done. So Cypress Studio is gone, but they replaced it with this Chrome extension, which actually might make more sense because you might be already on the site. Let's say you see a bug, right? And you right there in the browser, you just start recording it, go all the way to the bug, export as a test, and say this is a reproduction for the bug. Now make it as a small co-regression test. So I'm really excited about that.
That's really
Nice.
awesome.
That's
That's
really
like
cool.
very cool. I mean, I feel like product owners everywhere are like rejoicing, they're like dancing around a pole somewhere celebrating,
That's how I dance. That's the
I
only way
mean,
to dance.
I'm thinking about like maypole summer, Anyways, Chris, you've been giving me so many disapproving looks. Like just like every 2 minutes, you're just like nodding in disapproval. Like, what's up with that, dude? Like, don't hate the player, hate the game, okay?
You're sensitive.
I am
Yeah.
sensitive. I am. Anyways, let's not talk
Maybe
about
this
this
is
on
a-
air.
Maybe this is a good segue to talk about the wider community, because we talked about the online open source community, but of course developer communities are not just online, they also are in person sometimes, or in certain communities that are outside of projects and software, like conferences and podcasts like the one we're on now.
Well, I just want to remind everyone that the people you can interact as a professional, right? Not just people at your company, right? Or your school or your study group, right? We are truly gone global, especially during COVID, right? Where you actually interact with people a lot more, right? Being online, attending online conferences, which is like probably the only upside to COVID epidemic was how much people actually said, yeah, we don't have to like all fly, 10 hours to this place so that we can listen to 20 talks and then all fly back, right? It became acceptable to have online conferences, which I personally find incredibly rewarding, right? Being at work and then looking at schedule and say, oh, I'm just going to watch for next 2 hours, the conference talks that are online. But I have to say that I don't like all aspects of online conferences as, a speaker, right? So I'm gladly doing online talks. You invite me, I'll do it, right? But it takes work. It doesn't take any less work to prepare a presentation if you're doing online. It probably takes more because you have to deliver.
You can't wing it.
Yeah, you have to deliver it in front of like green screen, literally, right? You have no audience reaction. It's absolutely much more harder emotionally than being at the conferences and feeling excited and you see everyone and then you discuss it, right? Like, no, it almost happens as in vacuum. But it's still fine to do it. Of course, being a speaker at in-person conference has its perks, right? You're there, you travel, you have speaker dinner and so on. But online doesn't have it, so, trade-offs. What I want to encourage everyone in the community to take advantage of are not just online conferences, because usually we have like a free track or we publish talks afterwards, right? It's a lot more professional now than in-person conference. But take advantage of workshops, right? So during COVID, you had to do workshops online. So a lot of people actually stepped up the game, right? They're better prepared. They know what to do, right? They know more specifically how to interact with each person. The online workshops now are much better than they used to be before COVID, because you had to improve, right? But I want to take an issue with some conference organizers. Not only they invite me to do online talks, which is fine, they want to invite me to do online workshops, right, for free. You know, usually it's like, oh, can you do it for like 2-3 hours? It's like, whew, 2-3 hours is a huge chunk of preparation, and right. So it's fine. I've done it a couple times. I encourage everyone to attend online workshops if it's available. I'll do one for testing for good, which will be in October, organized by Sauce Labs, right? 2-3 hours about testing using Cypress end-to-end and component.
I'm gonna get my team on that.
It's gonna be a good conference. I just want the conference organizers to be a little more, I would say, respectful, and say, okay, the workshops that we're giving for free, right, will probably be limited in scope because it takes a lot of work, right, and it's harder to justify, right. But if you're attending, definitely take it as a chance. If you can attend any workshop online, definitely attend it. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and to be clear, Gleb isn't talking about Sauce Labs in particular, just in general.
Yeah, right. No.
To like conference or like free conferences in general, take care of your people. Yeah, I totally agree, Gleb, especially because you do a lot of speaking. And you're speaking at a few different interesting things. I have a bunch of people from my company that are actually going to be at NGConf. And
Yes.
I'm excited you're going to meet people that I work with. You'll be at you'll be doing a workshop at NGConf. You've also started Cypress.tips, which is like a new website where you're like, all right, y'all, I keep doing this tech support. Let me just like try to get some let me organize my thoughts and also try to get paid for all the time that I've sunk right into all this. And I love your YouTube channel too. You have all these like bite-sized videos, like just like it's awesome. It's like you solve a little problem and you make like a 3-4 minute video, and like, you know, it reminds me a lot of like Rails casts or Egghead, like
Yeah.
but like the like free version on YouTube, you know. Although I think Rails casts is free, it has been for almost a decade now, but you know, so
Amal, can I interject? Yes, I'll be at NGCon this weekend. I'm only doing workshop and flying right after. I'm not even going to the conference. I just don't have time to stay there. So if you're not taking my workshop, and I'm working on the contents, like finishing it just now because of the component testing for Angular that came out. That section is new.
That's
but
awesome.
Aside from that, what were you talking just now?
I think it was about the conferences, but no. So just for what it's worth, this episode is going to be dropping after NGConf or during NGConf and after your workshop, because your workshop is next Monday. So time warp again, but yeah.
Okay, I remembered. Yes, I do have a YouTube channel, and I have a biggest playlist of Cypress tips and tricks videos that I make, because every time I see something, yes, it's one thing to write a blog, but sometimes it's better just to see it, right? So I code up those, solutions. You can see like literally Cypress on one side, code as I change my code editor on the other side, and my like head kind of floating there. And I'll tell you, you said it reminds you of Egghead videos. Yes, absolutely. And you know why it reminds me? Long time ago, Egghead invited me to do like a course. And like I submitted a couple of videos, right? The course was supposed to be about DevTools or something. And we argued so much about editing each video and re-recording and like, oh, and can you remove this pause? And I was like, I'm not doing it for you. That's it. Like, you just... Because if we talk about economics, it makes zero sense. Okay? That's why I started Cypress Tips. So I give pretty much 95% of everything I create for free out there on YouTube, my blog, and so on, right? But if you talk about Egghead, they take the chunk of money, right? Just for hosting it. If you talk about conferences in person, every workshop there, the presenter who's teaching the workshop gets 50%. That's like standard rate. So imagine whatever you pay for the ticket to attend the workshop, the presenter only gets half of it. So if you like subtract all the expenses, nobody's going to be a millionaire by working themselves to death during workshops, right? So finally, I was like, okay, when I was at Cypress.io, I never, well, it was part of my job, right? You know, teaching everyone, making sure everyone's successful. When I left the company, I decided, okay, enough. Why don't I create a nice course about Cypress? And I've done it, and I hosted it for free. If you go, and we'll put a link in this description, to Blazemeter University. So Blazemeter is a company doing a lot of testing, right? Blazemeter University hosts my Cypress version 10 fundamentals course, right? Absolutely free for everyone. And then on my Cypress tips, I created 2 other courses. One is complete. It's all about Cypress network testing. You can literally like hands-on exercises, you know, using network testing, spying, stubbing from Cypress test. The course is there. And I'm working on another course that you can already like purchase, and it's work in progress, so you can see new videos and new lessons as soon as I post them. It's all about Cypress plugins, you know, how to extend functionality of Cypress, you know, using other tools. So
That's awesome. And we're going to give JS Party listeners a promo code to get 20% off of any of Gleb's courses for the next like 3 weeks. 3 weeks from when the episode drops, which will be someday in, I think September 1st or September 2nd is when this episode drops. So it'll, let's just, probably for most of September.
Yeah, why don't we do the whole September?
Let's do all of September, yes. Testing September, JS Party,
Exactly.
and then we'll put the link in the show notes to cypress.tips, and JS Party will be your promo code for 20% off. And yeah, support a maintainer. And I'm definitely going to be getting my team on that. So thank you in advance. And what else? So I think to kind of wrap up here, I'm curious, what are your, I like asking this question to a lot of what I consider like very prolific open source maintainers. What do you want to, like, what could you, if you could wave one magic wand, like about the internet, about development, about whatever, testing, anything goes to this technology related, like what would you want to change?
Honestly, I like the complexity, right? We have all this kind of history of internet, and it grew layer by layer over 31 years now, and it became this nice little system of libraries, tooling, websites, technologies. I think I would not change a thing, right? A lot of people kind of say JavaScript needs a standard library, right? Not just like a couple of math and so on, but like big libraries, so you don't have to include Lodash or Lambda in every project that you work on. And I kind of see why people would say that. So maybe the one consensus decision would be just to have Lodash available by default. And I'll tell you why. Cypress, the test runner, by default bundles and includes Lodash, Bluebird Promise Library, jQuery. It used to have Moment. They removed Moment because it was way too big for what it was supposed to do, right? It's so nice when inside your code you just, hey, here's a Lodash method, just use it and move on, right? You don't have to install nothing. So if there was one change, just include Lodash by default in the browser.
Agreed. I'm +1 on that. Can't like yes to all of this. And in our chat, like here, Chris was we were gossiping about you. Chris was like, quote, I don't understand how you make all this content and have a separate day job. End quote. I would agree, Gleb. I don't understand it either. You have a lovely wife and kids who you also spend a lot of time with. So I know you're a family man too, and you also do a lot of volunteering with different environmental groups and kind of groups that are trying to do something about the our climate crisis. So you definitely have a full life, and we just want to say thank you for like everything that you do. And the internet is literally a better place. Oh wait, we didn't tell people the story of me, you, and Cypress. What the hell? Like, how did?
Give me extra credits, like.
Oh, yes. Well, I'll say it really quickly, which is like, I invited Gleb to a podcast on Cyprus. Like this is like what, maybe 6 years ago now? I don't know, 5 years ago, some long time ago, on Web Platform Podcast, which is where I've been podcasting since 2012. The project is kind of actually kicking back up again. We paused for a few years, but it's been a long running, pretty successful podcast on the web platform. I'll put a link to the episode. But I invited Brian and Gleb. So that was Gleb's first introduction to Brian, and I invited Gleb as a guest panelist with us to interview Brian because of how much Gleb loved Cyprus. And I was like, hey, Gleb, now's your chance. Come meet Brian, you know? And shortly after that, he ended up getting working with them full time, you know? So I like to take a little bit of credit for accelerating what I think would have happened anyway. But, you know, that was a pretty cool little story for all of you.
No, thank you, Amal, for that and for the story. And I just want to point out that, you know, your first job out of college, out of boot camp, probably has to be on the strength of your resume, whatever courses you took, you know, open source project that you can show. But after 2-3 jobs, you probably want to look at your career and make sure that you are invited by people you worked with or interacted or collaborated with, right? Because those things will probably lead you to places that you enjoy more than blindly applying at a company and then joining. It's like, oh, I don't like this product, I don't like the technology, I don't like these people, right? So the more you interact, the better impression you have, the more positive person you are, right?
Yeah.
The more chances you'll get to actually work with people who like you and you like them. That's it.
Oh man, well, can't end it on any better of a note. So with that, we'll give it a wrap. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back next week as always. Special thanks to Gleb, of course, and Divya and Chris. It's been really, really, really fun, y'all. I had a lot of fun with the soundboard too. So, you know, another kind of plus there.
Sorry
okay.
for making faces at you, Amal. I'm sorry.
I mean, you know, Chris, apology accepted. Although I am trying to find the outro and there is no outro music. So we're going to outro to the intro. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.